I'm Sabrin. I just moved to Fort Lee, so I won't give you any fearless forecast from Fort Lee about the presidential election. If I were that smart, I'd be going to the stock market and making a lot of money. Anyway, I ran for the United States Senate in the year 2000, and last week we announced my candidacy for the U.S. Senate this year. We have a website, murraysabrin.com, and you're all invited to Jersey City this Saturday when we have the opening of our office on 30 Montgomery Street. So, yeah, if you're in the neighborhood or you're looking for a very cheap date, you're welcome to come to 30 Montgomery Street. Anyway, I'm here to represent Congressman Ron Paul, who I've known for 25 years. I met the congressman in Washington, D.C. at a conference because we're both concerned about an issue that's very important to the American people, the money issue. I'm not getting into it tonight. I'll be discussing it on my campaign. And so let me give you something about the character, integrity, and the courage of Ron Paul. Just one story about that, and I think you'll understand why this man deserves to be the next president of the United States. Congressman Paul was elected first time to the Congress in 1976 in a special election. Gerald Ford was in the White House and called Congressman Paul for a visit in the Oval Office. And there was noise that Ronald Reagan was thinking of running for the presidency. And so President Ford invites Congressman Paul into the Oval Office and says, "Welcome, Congressman, to the Congress of the United States, and I'd like your support for my re-election to the presidency of the United States." And Congressman Paul says, "Thank you, Mr. President, but I'm supporting Ronald Reagan." Freshman congressman going into the Oval Office and talking to the President of the United States is not going to support him for his re-election. Now that takes courage when you just got elected from the state of Texas to tell the sitting president of your own party, "I'm sorry, I'm supporting Ronald Reagan, who I believe will be a better president." And he was only one of 4 congressmen to endorse Ronald Reagan, who the media said was unelectable, who the media said was extreme, who the media said was a fringe candidate. And what happened in 1980? He won. And what happened in 1984? He won nearly 50 states. That's the character of Ron Paul. That's the insight of Ron Paul, of who he wanted to be president in 1980 when this country was reeling, with the hostage in Iran, with the dollar plummeting, with inflation running out of control. Ronald Reagan got the support of Congressman Ron Paul, one of only 4 congressmen. Well, let's look at what Ronald Reagan would say today if he were to come back miraculously and say, given all these fine candidates, who would he choose to be the Republican standard bearer in this election? Well, we know we're in an unpopular war. The polls tell us that all the time. We know we're on the brink of a recession. We know that the Republicans lost badly in 2006 because of scandal, overspending, and a general malaise in the Republican Party. Political commentators such as George Wilson said the Republican Party has lost its way in the last few years. And we're looking for leadership. We're looking for someone to step up to the plate and say, these are the principles that the Republican Party is based upon: limited government, free enterprise, and protecting the rights that are guaranteed to us under the Constitution. That's the type of leader that Ronald Reagan would be looking for. So let's look at the Bill of Rights. Let's look at the rights that are guaranteed to us by the Constitution of the United States. Let's look at the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law abridging freedom of speech. And guess what? We have a law in place that abridges the freedom of speech, the McCain-Feingold bill, that a lot of conservative groups oppose tooth and nail, that conservative judges and conservative commentators like Judge Napolitano said is one of the most egregious assaults of the First Amendment. And it was passed, maybe with good intentions, but it was one of the most extreme bills that denied people the most fundamental right, the right of free speech during a political campaign. So if you're willing to do this because of expediency, what else are you going to compromise in the Bill of Rights? If you're willing to take away the First Amendment from people during political campaigns. Well, let's look at the Second Amendment. Ron Paul has never voted to take away any Second Amendment rights from the American people in his 20 years in Congress. We know one candidate has supported the Brady bill, Mayor Giuliani. He fought the gun manufacturers for making a legal product on this issue. Let's look at the 9th and 10th Amendment, which says if it's not in the Constitution, the people or the states have the right to do so. And what's been happening in the last 10, 20, 40, 50 years? More and more power is concentrated in Washington, D.C., away from the states, away from people, away from businesses. And so now we have a $9 trillion debt. We have $60 trillion of unfunded liabilities. That means every person in the United States owes $400,000. That means a baby born today, according to some very important studies, will pay more than half of their income in federal taxes to pay all the liabilities over the next 60 years. That's what's been created in the last 60 years under both Republicans and Democrats. Ron Paul wants to go in and change that situation. It is unsustainable. It's a situation that will lead to our economic downfall. And it's been brought about by miscalculation, maybe with good intention of having all these wonderful programs, but they're financially unsustainable. So here we are today with fine candidates running for the President of the United States. What does Ron Paul have to offer that distinguishes them from these group of men and one woman? He says, let's get rid of the IRS, let's get rid of the income tax and replace it with nothing. That would take $1 trillion that the federal government now spends and put it back into the pockets of the American people, which would give us the same budget we had 10 years ago. So the budget 10 years ago, we survived as a nation 10 years ago with a budget that's $1 trillion less. Let's do it again. Let's have a budget that reflects the priorities of the people, and it's a constitutional budget. He's the only one really calling for a constitutional budget, a budget that is based upon Article 1, Section 8, which says these are the responsibilities of the federal government, not all these other bureaucracies. The Department of Education. Ronald Reagan ran on a platform to get rid of the Department of Education. What's happened in the last 8 years? It's doubled in size. Ron Paul wants to eliminate a slew of government agencies that will free up the resources that will make our country stronger, that will, in many ways, eliminate a lot of the outsourcing that's going on, because businesses, where are they going? I teach finance. Where do they go? Where they can get a higher rate of return. And where is that? Overseas, where there's less taxes, less regulation. Ron Paul knows this. He's one of the most astute members of Congress because he's read about economics and finance and history and political philosophy. And I'm proud to say he's my friend. Last week he endorsed me in our release. So what does Ron Paul offer that the other candidates don't? A sincere belief, as a former member of the Air Force, as a physician who's delivered 4,000 babies, who's pro-life as much as anybody. But he believes that America has been led astray by people with good intentions who think that more and more decision-making in Washington is better for the American people. He's a real Jeffersonian. In fact, what did Judge Napolitano say about Ron Paul? He's the Thomas Jefferson of our time. Now, if you can get better praise than that, I don't know where it's going to come from. Judge Napolitano said, Ron Paul is the Thomas Jefferson of our time, the author of the Declaration of Independence. If that isn't an endorsement that you should consider when you go to the booth on February 5th, please do so and vote for Ron Paul. RonPaul2008.com. Thank you very much.